Hello everyone, N7 here, and the first Descendant dev stream at PAX East just finished, and so I'm just going to be doing a summary video of what's to come for Season 3. And if you're just here to know a date, we don't know yet. It is going to be announced in summer of this year, and that is also. If you're just here to know what date, unfortunately we don't have that, so thanks for watching. Leave a like and sub if you leave. But for those who are interested in seeing exactly what is in Season 3, go ahead and keep on watching. So we had a bit of an introduction here. It ran a slightly late. I think it'll just do some technical difficulties. We got introduced to the director as well, which was pretty cool. And this guy here, he did an amazing job translating and just being an amazing MC, had a great energy and all that. And then what's cool too was they had incentives for how many people were watching, and so there were a lot of milestones reached, and we hit the maximum of 20,000 people watching that they were ready for. And I'm pretty sure there was a lot more than that, but it was cool that we hit 20,000 people watching the stream. So that was a big W for the First Descendant community and as a whole. So then they talked about Axion, which is going to be the new open world area when Season 3 drops. And so a little bit of lore behind it is that it was a forward operating base for the Descendants and fighting the Vulgus, but then it was abandoned and all that. And so now they're trying to retake it back. And so then we went through a little bit of a new faction, and the faction is called the Legion of the Breach. And so it's pretty cool that we got a new faction for Vulgus, and as you can see, they're more heavily armored. And a little bit of lore for them is that they are like mutated, and they've actually got pieces of Colossus DNA in them and all that. And so we don't know what kind of fighting styles they are, but we got a new faction for Vulgus, which is pretty cool. And then they showed this guy right here. So he's going to be a interesting guy to fight. He looks like a big bruiser, shields and all that, so we'll have to see how that goes. Then they announced, as mentioned earlier, they're the vehicles, and it is a hover bike, which is pretty cool. So this is a trailer that they are showing here, and we don't really have the full visual of what the hover bike looks like, but we got a little bit some back angles, a little bit of the front, so it looks a little bit more boxy, so to speak. But yeah, it was a really cool way of doing that. And I'm jumping a little ahead because they had a Q&A, which was really nice, and one person asked about the hover bike in general, and they asked, like, he uses Grapple Bunny, and he's like, is it slow compared to Bunny? And so what they mentioned is that when you get the base version of the hover bike, it is slower than Bunny and all that. But then there are going to be 3 phases. So the first one, just log into the game when Season 3 drops, and you'll be able to get the bike automatically with no issues. But if you wanted to get the accelerated version, which is phase 2, and the boosted version, which is phase 3, you'll need to gather resources within Axion to be able to upgrade the bike even further. Once it's fully upgraded, is actually going to be much faster than an SMO 4th ability run. So they said they wanted this thing to be fast, and so it's going to be outspeeding Bunny. So in case you're wondering, the speed is going to be fast and all that. So that was pretty cool. And see, as you can see, they didn't give us too much details on what the look is, so we just have to speculate. Now they went into, as they mentioned also, since it's an open world, they were wanting to drop Colossus into the battles. Now this is pretty cool. This is showing the Wall Crusher, which is going to be they mentioned one of many Colossus they were planning on dropping, because they didn't give us too much details, but they were like, this is the first of the Colossus. And so I was like, okay, so they're planning on doing more. And so you can see it's very big, and according to them, this is 2 times as big as our normal Colossus that we've been fighting, which is a bit crazy. And what's so cool too is that it is an 8-man fight. So not just 4 people, 8 people, and they mentioned the word raid a few times. So I don't know if it's going to be instance or like when the guy drops, is it going to be like a barrier around it or something, or is it just going to be you're fighting? And they didn't get too much details into that, because again, I think it's still in early stages right now, or just finalizing, and they just want to wait until the next dev stream. But yeah, 8-man squad to take these guys down, which is pretty cool. And they said that when one of these Colossus drops, the environment changes. So I hope it's going to be like what they did with Infernal Walker, where the whole arena changes into more fire look and all that. I think it would be cool, and they just up that times 10. So yeah, 8-man run to take out Colossus, which is pretty cool. And let me take my look. Yeah, so they're going to be a special reward for taking them down, and just some other cool stuff like that. Then we jumped over to the lounge, which is going to be a personal area that you can do. And there are going to be 3 areas that you can place. They said place your Descendant. I don't know quite how this works. They were a little bit, I think it was still like trying to get finalized all that. But yeah, this is the look, and you can have your Descendants, and you go into a first person, they mentioned, which is very interesting as well. And then you can just display your collectibles that you've done. So hopefully the ones that you've taken on the Void Abyss bosses, you can place them somewhere. But again, they didn't really give us too much details. They were just doing a little thing right there. And then apparently this outfit right here will be available when the lounge drops and all that. And then they hit 15,000 viewers, which is pretty cool. And then they just talked about how the breakthrough, which is going to be Season 3 Breakthrough, which is going to be the name of it, and it's going to be split up into 2 episodes. So episode 1 and then episode 2. And this is going to be important because we'll be going into the next picture right here. We're going to be talking more about Amon and how why he was doing the Sigma sector and all that. So we're going to go more into the story right there. And then if you notice with this screenshot right here, this person looks pretty cool. That is Nell, and that is official that they're going to be talking with Nell as well as Enzo story arc and all that. And apparently there's a love story with that too. So it's going to be interesting. And believe it or not, Nell is going to be a playable Descendant, which is pretty cool. I love her style. Compared to the other Descendants, which is more on the sexualized side, so to speak, this one is just more laid back a bit more, but still shows that she can kick butt and all that. And they mentioned a little bit that she has, let me see here, let me take a look at my notes right here. So her abilities are focused on telekinesis, which is pretty cool. And they said that you know, a lot of people were like, well, Nell does not have arcade powers. Well, they said that arcade develops over time, as they mentioned in with Glaze story and all that. So Nell will have arcade powers, which is pretty cool, and she's going to be focused on telekinesis, and she's going to be using through firearm abilities as well as some abilities, and they are going to be used to mark enemies so they can have weak point damage with those weapons. So she's, I guess, a good hybrid between Haley and Glay, I guess, but she's going to be buffing weapon damage, but also focusing on the weak point damage, marking enemies. And also her passive is going to be like Enzo, which means that she can be used to find vaults a little bit better and run things. So yeah, that's going to be pretty cool as well. And then they mentioned as well the next ultimate, which is going to be Alt Luna. So for those Alt Luna mains out there, congratulations and all that. And then they did mention that we are going to be having melee weapons in the game, which is going to be pretty cool. And so these melee weapons, so I think it was the first 3 or first 2 are going to be available when season 3 drops. Let me just make sure I'm saying this right. Okay. So they said it's not going to be these melee weapons are not going to be released on day 1, but it's going to be in the middle of episode 1 and all that. So the day 1 you're not going to get melee weapons, but there's going to be apparently a new dungeon I'll be dropping with the boss, and the melee weapons will be dropping from him. And so these weapons can be slotted into your weapon slots. So if you have a last dagger, you replace it with a melee weapon, and then those melee weapons will have modules and to buff them and all that. And so someone asked in the Q&A, is this scaled off the sub attack damage and all that? They said no, it's just going to be focused with the mods and you just buff it through that. So yeah, melee weapons are in. And then this one here apparently will be released in episode 2. So that will be much later. And it was really funny. They mentioned lightsaber and they're like, oh, wait, we're not supposed to say that. It's called a light blade. So it was really funny that they had to go, whoa, we didn't mean to say that and all that. So it was just really funny. Then what they mentioned, so summer. So we don't have a definite date exactly when that comes. And then as multiple, if you've been watching the dev streams, there have been a lot of people requesting about collabs and when is that going to happen. And at NieR Automata, it is the first collab with First Descent, which I think is a cool idea, especially with the melee introduction and all that because of swords and all that. So this is one right here, which is pretty cool. And then this is another one right there. So I think that it's going to be pretty cool when that gets finalized. Pretty neat. So skins are going to be very short on the side. So those who are looking for skins, this one that we're seeing right here was in concept art in the last dev stream, but now it is in full realization and is May 22nd, which is going to be about a week from now, give or take or so. And this is the only skin they mentioned in all that. So then they mentioned about since in July will be First Descendant's first 1 year anniversary, there's going to be in-game events. There's a concept art contest for new skins upcoming because they want to get ideas from the community, which is pretty cool. And apparently the original soundtrack will be released through any streaming platform like Spotify and all that fun stuff, which is pretty cool. And then they're going to have an online showcase and then show a roadmap, which is going to be pretty cool. All right. And next, moving on to, they then were talking about, they just did season roadmap and then they went to Q&A for the last segment of that. So if you want to see the full Q&A, check the description of this video. You can get the link to this stream and all that. So there's some really cool ones. They were talking about, again, with how fast is the hover bike once it's fully upgraded is going to be super fast and all that. And then they mentioned about is there going to be more arcade tuning in the future, and they're saying we're going to be looking into and seeing if it's needed, but they are planning on having a second page of arcade tuning. I don't know how that looks like, but yeah, again, I think they're putting that on the back burner right now to get season 3 up and going and all that. And then a good question that was asked is for any of the weaker Transcendent mods, are they going to be taking a look at? And the director said, yeah, we'll take a look at that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, overall, some pretty cool news and all that. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.